Hunter, what's up?
What's going on?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing really well. I need to adjust my audio settings here. One second.
Sure. Oh, you're good. Do whatever you need to
All right.
do.
Cool. Yeah, I think we're set. Should be
Awesome.
good now.
Cool. How's your morning going?
It's great.
Yeah,
Awesome morning. It's a
good.
beautiful day. I'm
It's
happy
been
for
beautiful.
warm weather finally.
I know it felt like we were sitting in the 40s for just like an indefinite amount of time. Just like it
Yeah.
would not break. And it wasn't snowing. It was just like cold and raining and gross
Right.
and just terrible. But now, yeah, now we have like sun, a little bit of variation. It's warm. So yeah, we're like in
Yeah.
spring officially.
The problem is with this city is like I'm always expecting it to turn on me again. Like I could wake up tomorrow to snow. I just feel like
Yeah.
it's always a risk.
Right. Exactly. And so it is important to like appreciate the good weather when you have it because it is all over the place. Like you people say it all the time, you could have four seasons in a day in Pittsburgh, which is
Yeah. Super true.
annoying. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway, yeah,
for
it's sunny
sure.
today. All good. Uh so why don't you start out by talking a little bit about what you do for DK Pittsburgh Sports?
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I started with DK in December of 2018, and it was kind of on a more marketing basis, really, than reporting. I have a degree in journalism from West Virginia University, and I was working as a reporter in mixed martial arts, like UFC fighting, that sport for probably about 7 years. Went through Bleacher Report, MMAfighting.com, and then also ran Flow Combat, which was a division of FlowSports.tv. I almost said
Shoot.
.com, but yeah. So I covered MMA for a long time, and with Flow, I did a ton of social marketing, email marketing, Facebook ads, all things of that. Like handled all their social media accounts. Got my feet wet with Premiere Pro and Photoshop and things like that, just making graphics and whatnot for social. So eventually I just wanted to I grew up, a Steelers fan, not so much a Pirates fan, Penguins fan, grew up watching these teams and loving these teams. And I lived in Pittsburgh throughout all this. Even though Flo was based in Austin, I got to work remotely. So I got to stay at home and just be around the city. And it just kept weighing on me, kept weighing on me. I was like, man, I want to get involved with the Pittsburgh sports scene. Like, this is what I feel like I always want to do. So I just kind of made a pitch to DK and explained where I thought my skill set would fit in. We had a talk from there, little interview process, all that good stuff, and then hired me from there. But quickly I started like reporting more and writing more because I don't think I made it clear in my interview. This was probably on me. I don't think I made it clear in my interview that like I love to write and report. Like that's what I do
Mm,
at my foundation. Like that's what I'm most comfortable doing. All the other stuff's great and I understand all that aspect of everything too. And I'll keep doing that. I still do that for them too. But as it evolved, I started covering Steelers, started covering Pirates. Haven't covered Penguins yet, but covered Pitt basketball all last season. I was like the main beat writer there. So just reporting on all these different teams, doing a little bit of everything. I mean, I don't know, Swiss Army knife's the right way to put it or what, but I literally do a little bit of everything over there.
it's awesome to see what you do seriously because you are all over the place. Like when I always followed your writing on the Steelers, and when you started writing for Pittsburgh basketball, I was like, what? Like
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't believe it. And I used to be big into Pitt hoops way back in the day when like Brandon Knight was on the
Nice.
team. I was
Yeah.
so young then, but it's been a while. I kind of got disconnected from it, but I felt like your writing specifically on the season last year kind of sort of brought back that spark in me of the appreciation and love of pit hoops because it had been such a long time. But with Jeff
Nice.
Capel coming back, or not coming back, but coming on to like I having your perspective on how he was coaching the team was like, hey, maybe they could be something special again in a year or two, three, like somewhere down the line.
Yeah, and first off, thank you for that. That means a lot to me to hear that it kind of inspired you and you enjoyed it. But I agree with you as well. Like the vibes that you picked up with Pitt's program, I think they're definitely on the rise right now. It's a very exciting team. Last year was super fun to cover, and this is something that I heard when I covered Pirates as well. I did a couple road series from them, did a ton of home games for Pirates as well last year, and I would get like at least a couple comments a week of people like, why are you even covering this team? Doesn't it suck covering this team? Don't they suck? It's like the success of the team doesn't dictate how much enjoyment I get out of the
Mm,
job or how I do my job. So if I'm doing a good job and if I'm doing the kind of reporting I feel like I'm capable of, I could cover marble racing or slug racing, or like, I feel like I could cover anything and make it fun for myself. So it's all about what you put into it and what you take out of it, the relationships you form with the players and coaches. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like, you get to be around these guys and pick their brains and really hear the perspective that you just can't get any other way versus talking to somebody who has invested their entire life into this, like Jeff Capel. I mean,
mm,
you listen to that guy talk. If you're not captivated listening to him talk, then I don't know what to tell you. The dude is just masterful with words, and his mentality, the way he strives for greatness, and anything short of that is a disappointment. Like, there's no good with him. Good is not good enough. It's greatness that he's
mm.
after, and it's just inspiring to be in the same room with him and to hear him say these things. So Pitt is very much, I think, as you kind of alluded to, on the rise. And this year coming up, they look good, man. They made a lot of good improvements. If there's a season, hopefully, I
Yeah.
think they'll show up.
Yeah, you're so right with him. He's like a bard. The way that
Yeah.
he handles himself in media settings. And I think I might be misremembering it, but I think it was one situation where a reporter asked him about um, bringing in like recruiting players and why they were struggling so much. And his answer was just like, we're not the NBA. We can't just go out and sign guys and trade for guys. We have the players we have, and we're doing the best we can with that. But it's not as simple as we need more talent, so we're getting more talent. Like, and I love
Right.
that because it was so respectful, but at the same time honest about the
Yeah.
situation. Like, he wasn't sugarcoating it, and I loved that about his response.
Yeah, that was a theme with it. That was down in Florida State, actually. I remember that. I was there for that response because the room got a little tense as it happened. For sure, you could tell he was not happy with the question. Their depth was just awful. Like, you could tell they were on the heels of a very long road stretch, and they were just out of gas. They didn't have depth. So that's what the question was about. How do you go about getting more depth? Meanwhile, we're in the end of February. The season's almost over. It's like you said, it's not the NBA. You're not trading for more depth or signing a free agent right now to help you. Like, this isn't an option. They had what they had. So, and I think next year, I mean, you look at the way the roster looks next year, there's going to be so much more depth. These even the freshmen coming in have major potential to make an impact, I think, immediately. So the program's in a much better place next year. I won't go as far as to say they're going to be a top 25 team, but I think they have that kind of ceiling for sure.
Yeah,
If everything falls together right, I could see it.
which is exciting because they've been just on the outskirts of the tournament uh, for a while. So
Mm-hmm.
if they could even just get into the tournament, into March Madness again, like, that would be a huge step in the right direction. I think. But
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Definitely.
So for you, I'll ask it twofold. What is your favorite sport to cover? And then what's your favorite sport personally as a spectator to just watch and chill?
Nice. Yeah, they are different answers, surprisingly. Although I love covering football as well. Football, for me, is the one to watch for sure. Like, I grew up watching more football than anything, always doing, fantasy football, just being involved in the NFL as much as possible. So football to watch for sure. And football is kind of a family event. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you maybe have the same thing. We would get together with my uncles and cousins and watch Steelers games on Sunday. So it's kind of special and intimate on that level as well. To cover, though, and this will be super surprising, but the Pirates, for me, were my favorite team to cover. I don't know what it was. The group of players was amazing. First of all, like all the players in the clubhouse were just super respectful, but also insightful. You know, they were not in a good place last season, especially in the summer. It was a little rough for the Pirates, but they were always professionals, good with their time, even like funny, joking here and there. You know, it was still a nice culture to be around, just a really good team to be around. And Clint Hurdle, of course, he's gone now, but Clint Hurdle, I loved talking to, very much like Jeff Capel, where when he starts talking, he just captures your full attention and you just want to hang on every word this guy says. You know, I remember there's a managers meeting before every game. So you get to talk to Clint Hurdle before every game. And it's just a short session, 20, 30 minutes at the most, usually closer to like 15, 20 minutes. But there's times that I would leave those sessions and be like, what do I even write? Because it felt like he said 20 things that I needed to write about. Like everything he said sounded so important. And the way he put it just seemed so profound at the time. Or like, okay, that's something I can write about. That's something I can write about. But he had a way to just be masterful with his words as well, much like Capel. And I think Mike Tomlin would be like that too, but he isn't because he's so PR trained. He's so careful about what he says. He's so deliberate that he never lets himself open up in the way that Capel and Hurdle do. So I'm sure that's intentional on his part because he, like I said, he's very much cut from that same cloth. I think if Mike Tomlin had, for instance, a podcast where he could just be free and open for 3 hours, I think it would be amazing listening. It's just incredible.
Yeah, he's always very vague, and he keeps it to those 5 to 7 Tomlinisms. Like he really doesn't ever dive into his personal opinions, feelings, stuff like what any of that stuff. He's very diplomatic, and that's probably good because out of the 3 major teams in Pittsburgh, the Steelers by far receive the most scrutiny. Like the Pirates are just typically so bad that nationally they don't really even come up. And the Penguins have, for the most part over the last decade, sort of been media darlings because of Sidney Crosby and the success that we have had as a franchise. But for whatever reason, it just feels like the Steelers are always making headlines for no reason other than that they exist and people can pull stories out of it. And I can't remember if it was on the Steeler Nation podcast or the Locked On Steelers podcast where you were involved in a discussion about that, where it just feels like the Steelers get dragged through the mud constantly. It doesn't matter what they do or whether they're successful or not. Like something as simple as our Hall of Fame quarterback posting a video about shaving his beard is causing everyone to say that they're going to be worse this season than they were last season. Like, what?
Right.
So
how dare he?
I know. Get healthy. It's insane, and it fires me up a little bit, but
I can't tell. I couldn't tell that it does.
It's just ridiculous and so unwarranted. And so Tomlin being more on the careful side is probably in his best interest, because I think if he were as candid as Hurdle or Capel or like anybody else who has shared any kind of emotion, he would just be ripped apart by everybody outside of Pittsburgh.
No doubt. I mean, he's ripped apart, like we said, as it is. So if he opened up more, it would just get so twisted. It would get pretzeled up. But to the larger point there, I mean, the Steelers are maybe the best football franchise ever, top 3 at a minimum football franchise ever. So they're a top 3 team in the nation's most popular watched sport. That's why they get dragged through the mud. Everybody knows they got all the eyes, all the attention. They're the stars of the show to go after. Just like, you know, all the reality TV headlines I see are Kardashian family. That's the family to get. They got the numbers, they got the following. So
Yeah.
that's why. I mean, it's not like the Steelers are any better or worse in that regard than other teams. It's just nobody wants to hear about, like DK always says, about the Atlanta Falcons. Nobody cares about the Atlanta Falcons if you're, yeah. So talk about the Steelers if you want to get a reaction.
Exactly. And I think this was said too on whichever podcast it was, but the Steelers fan base is so passionate that all it takes is just one drop to create a tsunami, essentially. Like we get so fired up because we are so invested in this team and the city. Like Pittsburgh pride is just something that's so unlike anything I've ever seen before. And
it's beautiful.
It's amazing. It is. And I love it. And that's why I think I came back to Pittsburgh after living somewhere else for almost 4 years. Like it just, people love this city unlike any other group of people love their city. It's wild.
Yeah, I think that also comes to light a lot more as a society. We become more integrated online. Like Twitter has allowed that passion to just snowball because everybody's connected on Twitter. You know, I can think just the time that I've been working DK, I know when I tweet certain Steelers things, like I know the accounts that are going to retweet it or engage. Like there's just people who are all Steelers all day on Twitter, and that's like what they're about. Like the passion there is, like you said, it's unbelievable. And that definitely goes for Pittsburgh as a whole. You know, Pittsburgh does something awesome, and everybody, Steelers fans, Penguins fans, Pirates fans, all about it. I mean, we're all about our city ultimately, but I think that what makes Pittsburgh so interesting is that the teams you can't separate the teams from the city. Like it's all part of the same entity, like is Pittsburgh. It just is part of the fabric of this city. And that's what makes it so passionate, so strong.
Yeah, even from a branding, marketing perspective, my best friend brings this up all the time because she just has an eye for that kind of thing. But the fact that our bridges are gold, all three teams are black and gold, like even for Pitt sports, gold is one of the colors. Like we across the board just are so kind of integrated with that scene. Everything kind of overlaps into everything else. And I just think it's so cool. I love it.
It really is. It's awesome. I mean, other cities, I heard a stat one time, I don't remember what it is, but that all three major teams, like Pirates, Penguins, Steelers, all wear black and gold. There's only like a couple cities where that's the case for their major teams, all having the same colors and kind of the same cohesive look. It's not many at all. It's just awesome. Like you said, black and gold is like a rally cry around here, you know?
Yeah, people write songs about it. It's just, it's a thing.
I've heard, black and yellow. I mean, that's the whole debate. Is it black and gold or black and yellow? You can really fire up some people with that discussion. I wrote that on DK last Steelers season, actually, because whenever they got Nick Vannett,
I remember that.
From this, they got Nick Vannett, and he said, "I can't wait to put on the black and yellow." So I was like, "Oh no, he did it now." So then I went around and just interviewed like various people in the room, and I know Zach Kenner had a tweet a couple years ago as well about black and yellow, and people pounced all over him. So I just kind of surveyed the room. Is it black and yellow or black and gold? And Banner kind of laughed about it because he's like, yeah, I learned my lesson on that. Like, you're not getting me with that again. It's black and gold. But then, like, at the end of the interview, like, off the record, I was like, come on, man, what are you really thinking? He just kind of smiled. Because, like, the color is yellow. Like, if we're being honest here, it's yellow. It's black and yellow. But that's not the point. Like, it's just bigger branding, marketing point where it's just black and gold. And I know, like, I've heard the debate as well. Oh, the official color is Pantone gold or whatever it's called, something gold. Like it is actually called gold.
Goodness.
But come on, we all went to kindergarten. We know what color that is.
It's at best macaroni yellow. Like it's not gold. Like the Vegas Knights are gold. The Saints are gold. That's gold.
Old Pitt,
But
like Pitt's last uniforms were blue and gold for
yep,
sure.
yep, that kind of like little bit of a sparkle in there, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe they threw some glitter on it. That yeah, but the whole even the idea that we would take the color orangish yellow and slap the label of gold on it is
Yeah,
just one of the most Pittsburgh things
it
that
really is.
yeah, and that's why I love it. It's Pittsburgh gold, I guess, and
Yeah,
it works. And black and gold just kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit
it
easier
does.
anyway. Black and yellow is just a bit too much for
Yeah.
us.
No, I agree completely. But the song, Wiz really helped that
Yeah.
because now black and yellow, especially for the younger generation, just seems
Mm-hmm.
right. I'm actually wearing a black and yellow shirt. I just realized.
Oh,
So,
there you
so
go.
I'm going to fire some people up wearing this shirt. Oh no, I should have thought this through.
Oh, geez, they're gonna come after you.
Yeah, I'm prepared.
Goodness, yeah, I think
Shirt's
you can.
worth it.
I
Love
think you
these
can
dudes.
handle it.
Yeah, we'll be okay. I'm used to getting flamed a little bit.
Yeah, social media can be a little brutal, but
Yeah, a little.
yeah.
Especially Pirates. Like I said, covering the Pirates last year. Once you cover a Pirates season, you're ready. You're ready for about anything. They're so
Mhm.
angry, and I understand. I'm not saying they're out of line and they should be happy with the state of the team, but
Yeah.
man, you just talk about furiously miserable people.
Yeah, it crosses a line,
Yeah,
I think, because I completely understand the logic of not wanting to give money to an organization that isn't necessarily spending money to
sure.
win. I get it. But at the same time, I always go back and forth on it because one, I love baseball. Two, I actually do love the Pirates. And three, I love going to games at PNC Park.
Yeah,
So it's a really difficult line to toe when you want to see them try to win and go
sure.
in to win, but they aren't really taking the steps to do it. But it's not the player's fault. It's just it's hard. It's really hard. And I feel like each season, at least, there's some kind of redeeming
Yeah,
thing about it. And last year, with the first half specifically, Josh Bell, the way that he went off in the
yeah,
first half, and even with the emergence of Brian Reynolds, like those two things for me made games worth watching and
yep,
going to, because there was something that was exciting and
sure,
there was talent on the field. And again, it's not their fault that the Pirates aren't really putting those pieces in place to win. Like
sure.
I don't know, it's hard. And I
It
do
is.
think people just want to like rip into the team because it feels good.
Yeah,
I don't really know.
just got to let it out sometimes. But the Pirates are also done zero favors by the fact that the Penguins and the Steelers are the other two teams. You've got these top tier championship franchises, so they're always going to be under that shadow until they can break out. And we saw it, even recently, the wild card game, from 2013 to 15, they were right getting close again. And I think that's what
Yeah.
makes people that much angrier is that they kind of squandered that opportunity to keep building and instead just fell back into their old ways and imploded instead. So I understand, but I'm right with you. And I would urge people to also think about baseball or really anything in that way, is that as bad as that season was, there were storylines to watch that were very exciting with that team. And that's kind of, I don't think I really explicitly said that, but that's another reason why I said covering the Pirates was the most fun, because
Mm-hmm.
it was this thing that people saw as a dumpster fire, but it really wasn't that. Like, okay, it was like the record was for sure, but the team itself, the people, the parts of the whole were not a dumpster fire. So it was
Yeah.
really fun still to get their perspective and everything.
Yeah. It even going to the park the night that they had the all-star voting for Josh Bell, like I was in late June, I think, whenever that was, but that in itself was fun. The Pirates were not really in contention at that point, and it was before the All-Star break, so it didn't really matter either way. But just having a player of that caliber that we could go to the park for free and vote for him
Yeah.
to get him into the All-Star game because he was having that good of a season. Like,
Right.
it's the little things with the Pirates. And for me, I was very, I don't know if encouraged is the right word, but I was at least optimistic that they made that they swept house. Like they
Mm-hmm.
cleaned it up and got a new GM, new president, new manager. As much as I did love Clint Hurdle, I feel like if you're gonna go for it, then go for it. Get rid of
Right.
everybody.
Yep.
And that's why I'm so bummed that the MLB has yet to even make any kind of progress in starting the season, because I wanted to see what this new team under this new management looked like.
Yeah.
Is not that they would be contenders, obviously, but you can always tell when a team's headed in the right direction. And I'm very disappointed that we're still waiting on these owners and players to reach some kind of agreement on starting the season.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. It's actually funny. I was talking to my cousin about the Pirates, and I told him the same thing. I was like, I can't believe I miss baseball. Like, I'm upset that we don't have baseball right now.
Right?
I never would have thought that, but I'm so ready for baseball. And the Pirates, they are intriguing. I mean, like we said about the pieces from last year, they can all get better this year, and especially in a condensed season. It was like you said, up to the All-Star break last year, they were, 2.5 games out. They were right
Mm-hmm.
in the hunt. If you condense the season down to 81, 82 games, they might be able to make something happen in that short stretch of time. So
Yeah.
it's going to be really interesting. I'm like you though. I'm just ready for some baseball some way. I want
Mm-hmm.
to know how the team looks and feels now, because it's like you said, you can tell a coaching change when it's the right coaching change definitely injects life into a franchise, and that's across sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you saw it with the Penguins in the 2015-2016 season, bringing in Mike Sullivan halfway through. And not that that is always the case where you bring in a new coach and all of a sudden you're winning the championship, but it feels like it happens more often than not where, and maybe it's just me as a fan with a little bit of ignorance on how that all works. Like, it seems like after a certain period of time, there are groups of guys that just they stop hearing the
Yep.
coach. Like, they stop getting motivated by them. They stop wanting to really like hear those messages that they're sending. Like, I don't know. And do you feel like that's what happened with Clint Hurdle and the guys, or do you just feel like they wanted to clean house completely?
Yeah, I lean definitely towards the latter there. I don't think they ever, at any point last year, even when things were so bad, like gave up or stopped
Mm,
caring or just didn't listen to Clint anymore, or for that matter, that Clint had nothing left to give. I think just from the conversations, the advice was on point. Their mentality was on point. It was simply a matter of, like you said, not having the players there.
yeah.
Like, whenever you haven't built the team, the talent, that's going to catch up to you eventually, especially in a sport like baseball. It's such an individual sport compared to football or hockey or basketball. Having elite talent is a requirement.
Yeah.
You just
Yep.
can't get by without it. There's no team. It's basically a one-on-one game. It's pitcher
Yeah.
versus batter, and then of course the catcher does a lot within that too, which blew my mind last year. Super quick tangent. How much catchers do for pitchers and how much catchers are involved, like,
Yeah.
blew my mind. Like, catchers earned so much respect from me last year throughout the Pirate season. I was like, dang, like the catchers are the brains behind the operation, huh? Like, this is where it
Shoot.
all happens. Yeah, it was
How
amazing. So,
so?
I mean, besides making the calls, they do
Mm-hmm.
like all the studying. Like, they study opposing
Mm,
batters. They know exactly what to do in this count, in that count. What does this guy like to do whenever the count is 1-1? What does this guy like to do when the count's 1-2? Like,
wow.
dude, their level of study, like, I would almost every time I was in the clubhouse, Jacob Stallings or Elias Diaz, I forgot because they let him go. I was like, man, who's the other guy?
Yep.
But Jacob Stallings was the main one. He would constantly be on his iPad just studying film and studying these pitchers. And then if he was, you know, working with Musgrove the next day, he would call Musgrove over and be like, hey, man, check this out. And they would like
Wow.
share notes. They would go over things together. It's not just like, it's not random at all.
Yeah.
Like this is all very thought out, planned. And it was incredible to watch.
Dang. So now it makes sense why that position in particular was such a big concern for fans, like addressing the need for a catcher. Baseball is a sport in terms of technicality that I know the least about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as well versed in the ins and outs of baseball, but yeah, so when people were like, we need to get a catcher, we need to get an actual catcher who can play that position, I was like, what? It just completely did not click with me why that was so important, but now that makes sense.
Absolutely. And a lot of people think of catchers as a bat as well. You know, you hope that your catcher can also hit. But the flip side of it is that a catcher can be so good on defense. And this is exactly the case with Jacob Stallings, where just having an okay bat is totally worth it. Like you get his defense, his preparation, his trust with his pitchers and that chemistry. Like you'll take an okay bat. But a lot of people see a catcher as like, you want kind of a power hitter. You look at the great catchers throughout history are like good hitters, like Mike Piazza leaps to mind, obviously. But Stallings isn't that. It's really interesting in this Pirates team. The way they're constructed is like if we can't score a ton of runs, we understand we can't score a ton of runs. We don't have that talent at the plate, but we can save a lot of runs with elite defense. Right. So they've built this defense-heavy team, and that's what's so interesting to me and why I want to see this season so badly is because I think they've legitimately done that. Like this team is built for defense. Teams are going to have a hard time scoring runs against them. So even, you know, you put up 4 or 5 runs, if the Pirates can muster that, they're going to have a shot in a lot of games, I think.
It's a good point. I just want baseball to come back.
Same.
Oh, goodness.
I know. Talking about it doesn't help.
Yeah, it's just exciting and frustrating all at the same time. And all because they can't just reach an agreement. So what's your take on that situation with everything that's the back and forth of owners and players not being able to connect on what it will take to get the league started up with the season?
Yeah, I think first off, it's super unfortunate because nobody could ever predict these times that we're in or, you know, this was never expected. Obviously, it's a hard look for the players to hold out because everybody will say, oh, you're already a millionaire. Why can't you play for 10% of your salary? And I get that. I understand that line of thinking. But the flip side is that they have earned that. They've signed a contract for that. That is, they're specialized individuals who have worked their entire lives to get here. They don't want to take 10% of what they've earned throughout their life. You know, this isn't just like a one season thing. This is their life's work on display.
Right.
On the flip side, the owners can't afford it because with no fans in the stands, the revenue is going to be straight down the toilet this year. And everybody understands that. So the players already agreed to 50% cuts. If there's 50% of the season, they'll get 50% of the pay. They're good with that. But like this latest tiered system, I don't know if you've seen the numbers that came out. What they're asking of players, I think Mike Trout was the example, would have made something like $35 million this year, but will make like $7 million under this. So we're talking like less than a fourth of what he was scheduled to.
Wow.
I guess that's a fifth. I'm not good at math. That's why I went to journalism. But
yep, I get it.
You get the point. It's a huge pay cut, and it is less severe. Like Mike Trout obviously is a superstar, highest paid player. For like guys who are just on the fringe, maybe just came up from the minors making a league minimum, their cut isn't as severe, but they're still looking at like a 50% pay cut. Like they're going, I mean, on top of the original 50%. So it's bad. Like people can say all they want. Oh, what's the difference if you make 35 million or 7 million in a year? You know, I'm not going to make that in my lifetime. And I understand that feeling, but it just doesn't really work like that. And plus these guys, you got to think a lot of them have enough money to just sit out and be like, I'm good. Like I don't need to play for 7 million. I already got X in the bank. Like,
Right.
okay, if you're going to, screw me around like that, I'll just sit here and not play. So it's a very unfortunate situation because I definitely see both sides, but I'm still optimistic that they're going to work something out. I know a lot of people aren't. A lot of players are unhappy with this latest proposal, but I think they'll use that as a foundation and say, okay, that was you're negotiating like a used car salesman. You always start with your lowest offer and hope that he'll take that. Obviously
Yeah.
they didn't take it. So now they'll work towards something that makes sense, hopefully.
Right. I'm hopeful too. I think even just with the players weekend comes to mind, like this, obviously they care about getting paid, and Mike Trout specifically, like he's a once in a generation, perhaps lifetime kind of
Mm-hmm.
talent. He's so good at the game. But I think for the majority of the players, probably even him, like when it comes down to it, they're playing this game because they love this game.
Yep.
And I can't imagine both sides holding out to the point where there is no season,
Yep.
because the owners won't really make anything if there's no season, because what's going on. And the
Right.
players, I'm sure, want to play. Like these circumstances are just so ridiculous. It's nobody's fault. It's really hard to land anywhere because
Mm-hmm.
you can see both sides, and then it's just crazy that this
It's
is
a
all
bizarre,
happening. But
it's a super bizarre situation. I saw a figure that the Pirates payroll, our Alex Stumpf, our lead baseball beat writer on the site, wrote that the Pirates payroll would be like 19 million in this upcoming year. So obviously, like you're looking at
yeah,
historically low numbers, but the Pirates are, of course, the laughing example of this.
yeah,
But all teams are just going to see crazy cuts. It's going to be weird. Nobody's going to be totally happy. I mean, that's a fact.
yeah, yeah. And I think another good example is what's going on with the NHL. Like, so obviously it's not ideal to have a 24 team playoff format, like
Sure.
to have teams that would have been a guaranteed first round, like no matter what, playoff team just playing to get in now, like the
Mm-hmm.
Penguins against the Canadians, who are just terrible. They're not good.
Not a good team. Yeah.
No, they were at the trade deadline. They were considered sellers, right? Like
Yep.
they were just like, we don't know what we're doing. But they're moving forward with a season, and I can't imagine that every single person was totally satisfied with this format. But it gets to a point where it's like, either we finish the season and give somebody the Stanley Cup, or we
Mm-hmm.
call it a wash and we're done.
Yep.
And that gets tricky with the different player contracts, like Patrick Marleau, who would have been done with the Penguins after this season. Like, how do you navigate that? Like,
Right.
so you're seeing instances where it's like, okay, this is definitely not ideal,
Sure.
but we figured out a way to make it work, and everybody voted on it. Everybody is at least okay with it, and now we can move forward.
Yep.
Which I'm hopeful can happen with the MLB, but regardless, I'm so thrilled that they're taking steps to get into the playoffs for hockey, because I would have been so bummed.
No doubt. Absolutely. I mean, you have to finish it. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you said, there just any closure on the season is a positive thing.
Yep.
However, you got to do it. But one thing that's super interesting to me in this discussion across every sport is that in the middle of this pandemic, the issue has not been health and safety once whenever you talk
Mm,
about how to restart the season. Like, of course, they're building in these measures and that's all going to be very unique as well. But it seems like every league figured that out pretty quick, right? Like
yeah.
even MLB was like, okay, we can make this work during a pandemic. So just on that level, I feel like it's extremely hopeful, because not long ago we were like, are we ever getting sports back? Like at all? Is it
Right.
even remotely reasonable? Do we have to wait 2 years, 3 years? Like how long after a vaccine did you say we have to
Mm,
wait? It was like all these questions. But it's funny how, to me, the conversations have become less that and more, the money or the
mhm.
logistics of it. So yeah, it's not cool to bicker about millions of dollars between millionaires and billionaires during a pandemic when so many people have been hit hard and are legitimately suffering just to make ends meet at all. So it's a horrible look, but I'd rather them argue about that than them say, okay, this isn't going to be safe. We can't do it yet.
Yeah.
It's not ready. So it's
Yep.
cool. It's cool to me that that has kind of taken a back seat.
Yeah. Because if that were the deciding factor at this point, then yeah, we could be waiting years on sports
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
return.
I remember saying it in like April, I feel like, whenever things were first shutting down and nobody knew. And somebody was like, what do you think about the college football season starting? It's months away at that point. And I was like, dude, if the college football season doesn't start by then there's bigger problems than college football going on. Like
Right.
that's my
Right.
reaction to that. So,
Yeah.
so I'm glad that it's, gone away from that.
Yeah. And the biggest silver lining through all of this has been that the NFL offseason has, outside of the lack of rookie training
Hmm.
camps, OTAs, all that stuff, like other than that, the NFL offseason has continued as
Yeah,
normal. And I have historically really just loved to rip into Roger Goodell because he's an
sure.
easy target. But the way that he has handled all of this has been just excellent.
Yeah.
Like it's been the one thing that sports fans can kind of like cling to in all this, with the draft, even the virtual draft was awesome to
It
watch.
was it was great. I remember
Yeah,
saying that right after it ended. Like, if I wasn't aware that this was a pandemic time, I wouldn't have really thought twice. But obviously, having nobody in person, no
right.
in-person presentations, that would have looked different. But they handled it so perfectly. The way they had all the cameras set up in the players' houses and the GMs, the coaches, everybody wasn't still involved. Actually, to me, I kind of liked it more. Like, I
Yep.
remember telling people that I was like, there was so much more in-depth kind of time to fill, so they were letting you know more about these players than they usually could. I liked
Right.
it. And I remember Art Rooney second did an interview after and said, like, throughout the process they learned a lot, and they might
Mm,
keep a lot of these things. Like, do we actually need to fly every prospect in for an in-person interview, or can we just do a Zoom call?
yep.
So they're like, we never did it before because we never had to. But now that this past year we've been forced to do a lot of this stuff, how much of it's going to stick now? So I think we might see like a fundamental shift in the way teams do things.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they reevaluate what in-person activities are necessary,
Yep.
like the combine, and what isn't necessary. And I can't remember what it was on ESPN that I was watching. It may have been Sports Center, it may have been NFL Live. I don't remember. But one of the analysts was talking about how they were hearing from GMs, coaches, all of the organizations that, like, this is the draft period is a time of year where they are away from home so much that they don't really even get to spend time with their families.
Yep.
And to be able to have that where they're still working, but they're home and they're around their spouses, their kids, like, and they get to kind of even be involved in it. Like, that for me was really cool to
Yeah.
watch, like where teams were on the clock, the coaches were on the camera, and their kids were like running around, like just doing stuff, being crazy. That really brought full circle that human element of sports, where it's
Yep.
like they do have families, and the fact that they can be a part of this huge experience that typically was very isolated for the coaches and GMs, it was just really special. And from top to bottom, every single day of the draft was just a treat to watch.
Yep. I agree completely. And I love the way they structured the interviews right after each
Mm-hmm.
day. They had the conference calls set up, a couple Zoom calls the following days. I mean, it just felt like there was so much draft content available. And plus, it was like you said, kudos to the NFL for moving forward and keeping that date from the get-go. They said, now we planned on having the draft then. We're going to have it then. They figured it out. And the ratings were, through the roof. I'm sure you
Yep.
saw. It was just
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous. Everybody wanted sports, wanted something. So they were going to win regardless. But then the execution of it was so good, I think that it just took it to a new level.
Yeah, it did. Put it over the top.
Yep.
And I feel like every single person who watched it was pleased with it.
Absolutely.
Because it was something that was live. It was happening in the moment, and we could kind of just experience that rush of adrenaline that comes with watching games again.
Yeah, it felt so good.
Yeah, and even the schedule release was exciting because they hyped it up. They had specials on TV for it, and because it was not just, okay, when are we playing? It's like they're anticipating that we're going to have these games in the fall. Like it was so many different layers involved in that it was like, I put that in my calendar, like NFL schedule release. I have to watch that on TV. Which I have never done before. I would just always check online. Like, okay, I can see when the Steelers are playing these games now.
Yep.
But it's different. But yeah, the NFL has been kind of paving the way for the other leagues, like in how to handle all of this.
Absolutely have been. And the schedule release, I think, is so interesting because you stamp that date. Like that meant so much in this time, just saying on these days, we're having football, people. Like, don't worry, we're having football on these days. And it was such a baller move on the NFL's part, just following up on the draft. Everything they've done is, like you said, they've legitimately paved the way for everybody else. Like every decision, the NHL didn't make a decision with its draft until the NFL did, or MLB didn't until the NFL did. It feels like these other leagues are kind of waiting and be like, well, how's the NFL doing it? Because we're going to go ahead and steal their ideas. And to that point, I think Alex, our baseball writer again, he actually did talk to some of the Pirates, and they wanted to meet with Mike Tomlin to talk about how that virtual draft went and what lessons did you learn. So they are communicating with each other as well. So it's super important, not just locally, but I'm sure that's the case nationally as well, that the NFL keeps doing that because the other leagues do need their help.
Yeah, seriously. And to be fair, the NFL would be in their off season anyway. So it's not like they're having to also figure out what are we doing with the games that should be played right now, where the NHL obviously put a halt on their season and the MLB was in spring training at the time. But even so, I would imagine that everybody's just kind of looking to the NFL like, you're doing this really well right now, and we want to take notes because it's just very unprecedented. And there isn't a handbook for this, obviously, like what to do when the league shuts down for a pandemic. But yeah, I've been very impressed, and it's been good to kind of shift focus to the NFL season, like in terms of what to expect. Like how are the Steelers going to do? These are the matchups. This is the roster. Hopefully training camp will be able to start on time, and it feels like the normalcy that everybody's craving, like getting to that point where we can make predictions for the NFL season, like what it's going to look like, because we haven't really had any normalcy in any other facet of life. Yeah.
It'll be huge just to be in Latrobe. I'm sure fans won't be allowed to be there regardless, but and maybe they'll put limits on media where they really haven't before. I don't know how that's going to look, but just hearing the crack of pads once is going to be so huge for people.
Oh my goodness. It's going to be a game changer. If I were to be there, I'd probably cry. Just the
It's going to be powerful. I think
Oh yeah.
about the first game, especially the first national anthem, whatever, there's going to be a big ceremony,
Mm-hmm.
in memory of everybody who lost their lives
Right.
throughout this pandemic, especially locally, all the hospital workers, all the front
Mm.
lines workers. There's going to be something super powerful before that first kickoff or first pitch or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a goosebumpy moment for sure.
Absolutely. I can't wait. Yeah, and obviously safety is the priority, but like you said, they are taking that into account at, at the forefront of everything else. So the fact that we're able to have conversations that deal with anything other than safety is a huge deal, because it's like,
Right.
okay, so obviously that is the priority. So if you're able to focus on other things, then that's very positive in terms of moving forward with the season. So
Yeah. I feel like that got lost a little as well. Like
mm,
you don't see as many people talking about that, but that's been for me like the biggest sticking points. Like, wait,
yeah,
we're already done not caring about that, obviously, but done
right.
stressing about that aspect of like we feel like we have this figured out. Like that's
Yeah,
awesome. Well
yeah.
done.
I yeah, I personally can't wait. Like I typically don't plan this far in advance for Steelers games in particular. I've always kind of felt like out of all of the sports, watching them live, football is my least favorite.
Mhm.
But because that's the only sport right now that you can kind of anticipate going to and buying tickets for, I'm I have like the whole schedule out, and I'm like, okay,
Which
which
ones?
games could I go to? What can I make work? What would be worth it? And that that Thanksgiving game, like it's really really calling my name. Like
Ooh.
if I could go see the Steelers play the Ravens on Thanksgiving, like I'm trying to see if I can make that happen right
That would
now.
that would kind of reverse all the crap that 2020 has given
Right?
us. Like, yeah,
This year
that's awesome.
blows.
It
Yeah.
truly does. It
It
started off terribly and got worse.
it's yeah, with Kobe, like
Yeah.
it was just it from the very beginning. We had a very low bar and it collapsed
Yeah.
in on all of us. But it's getting better, I think. So it is a little bit too early to kind of make any types of predictions, but what's your gut telling you about the Steelers season coming up? Like what are you feeling about the team going into 2020?
Yeah, I feel a lot of optimism, like a lot. I think I was on the Steeler Nation podcast and predicted 12-4. When I first saw the schedule release, I said 12-4. So I've been sticking with that just in the interest of continuity, sticking to my word. You go game by game and the schedule just doesn't look that brutal. Like the
Mm,
AFC North is going to be tough as always. Even
yeah,
even the Browns and I think the Bengals are even improved.
they
So
improved. Yeah.
yeah, no easy games in that division ever. So that could swing things obviously, but this team has so much carryover from last year. And I think that's going to be so huge this season. Like teams that are introducing new players, new coaches are going to struggle because it's like you said,
Mm-hmm.
there hasn't been rookie minicamp, hasn't been in-person meetings at all. So like you look at the Steelers defense, which was their strength last year, of course, they're returning 10 out of 11 starters on defense. So their strength should be an extra strength this year, I think. They're all going to get better. Devin Bush, especially, is the one I look at. I feel like a lot of people, nobody's forgotten about Devin Bush, but kind of that luster, I
Mm-hmm.
think, of the pick has faded a little. And not because of anything he did, because he had a phenomenal rookie
Oh
season,
yeah. Oh
especially
yeah.
in terms of a rookie. I mean, he had a good season period, but when you frame it as a rookie, it was exceptional. But what TJ Watt and Bud Dupree were doing, Cam Hayward, Minka coming in, it kind
Mm-hmm.
of overshadowed Devin, which I think was a good thing for him, honestly. Like
Yeah.
take some of the attention away and just let him grow and develop. But he's going to be an absolute stud, I think. Minka as
Absolutely.
well, obviously. And Minka already is
Mm-hmm.
proven first team All Pro. He's not a top 100 player though, I hear.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah, so he can't really be that good if he's not in Pete
Yeah.
Prisco's top 100. Yeah.
Exactly. He's a
So,
bum. I guess he's actually a bum. I shouldn't say that.
yeah,
So
just
Minka sucks
I'll admit
apparently.
that.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Pete. Yeah, yeah. But no, like just that continuity I think is huge. And obviously it all hinges on Ben coming back and being healthy. He doesn't even have to be peak Ben. He just has to
Mm-hmm.
be good, like just an average to good quarterback, which is so achievable. So
Yeah.
the upside everywhere, even the weapons they've added on offense in Ebron, and I think
Oh,
Claypool's going to
yeah.
be a beast. I've been talking about Benny Snell a lot. A couple of people agree with me, but
Mm-hmm.
the majority of people don't. Like, I think I could see big things for him in year 2 as well, because when he got an opportunity, a real, 15 carries or more a game last year, he was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Happened 5 times and he averaged 75 yards a game, over 4 yards a carry. Like, that's what you want from your running back. He can do it.
Right.
And I look at Le'Veon Bell, I look at James Conner. The leap that they make in year 2, that running backs can make in year 2, is huge. Like, year 2 is whenever the running back kind of finds his footing, unless they're just a freak, Saquon Barkley kind
Right.
of talent. Just they're good no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But Benny can do really good things. He had a rough year too. He had knee surgery. He had a little legal run-in mid-season. So and just adjusting to life in the NFL is
Yeah.
tough for everybody. So I look at him as a guy who can really surprise people. But the team, like, you go position by position, it's better than last year. And last year was still 8-8. Like, that seems
Yeah.
like that's as bad as it could have gotten, and it was still 8-8. So 12-4 seems completely reasonable to me, which is crazy to say, because 12-4 is obviously an excellent record, tough to do in the NFL, but I see it.
Yeah. There were only, maybe like 4 to 5 games on the schedule when I was looking at it that I felt like, okay, they're probably going to lose these games.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I feel like they could win any of them. And
Absolutely.
I had like this gut feeling going into last year that it was going to be a special season because of all the stuff that had transpired with Antonio Brown forcing his way off the team, and it was the first official year that we had let Le'Veon Bell walk, not tried to place the franchise tag on him, and the Steelers as a whole were getting a lot of flack from the national sports media, and I just kept telling everybody this is going to be a good season. It's going to be a great season because they overcome adversity, like blah, blah, blah. I just wouldn't shut up about it. And then week 2, Ben gets hurt,
Yeah.
and from that point on, it was not great. Even, I mean, up until the very end of the season, the Steelers were kind of in it. Like,
Yeah.
and it's never ideal when your playoff hopes hinge on the outcome of other teams' games.
Yeah.
So that in itself, like whenever it came down to whichever games, I can't remember off the top of my head, but somebody needed to lose and we needed to win. It was a whole thing.
Yeah, you can't
And
have that.
no, you can't. If you really want a shot at the Super Bowl, that's not the way to do it. Like, even thinking of the 2006 Super Bowl win, like it got to a point where it was all on us. Like, we had to win out the rest of the season to get to the Super Bowl and win it. And we did. But it was not, we need to wait and see what happens with these other teams. It was like, it's do or die. Every single game is a playoff game for us. And I feel that same kind of optimism about this season, but more so because we've added, like, the defense is stacked at this point. And if Cam Sutton can be as good as I feel like he could be, and Terrell Edmonds kind of takes it to the next level in his game, I can't see any offense outplaying us. And the big thing last year was that our defense was leading the league in takeaways, but our offense wasn't producing points.
Yeah.
So with Ben back and with a handful of weapons on offense now, like Claypool and Ebron, who fit that mold for what he's always wanted in targets, like, I don't know. I don't necessarily think that means that they're a shoe-in to be Super Bowl champs, but I feel like they have just as good of a shot as anybody at this point.
I think it'd be foolish to count them out for sure
Mm-hmm.
on any level, because it's like you said, they've just improved from last year. And last year, it was like you said, 8-5 at one point. They lose their last 3 games. To be 8-5 in that season that they had is like hard to believe in
Yeah.
retrospect. Like you think back, you're like, wow, was it really? Like it was good actually. It was fine. Like looking back, that Mason was 5-3 as a starter. Like that doesn't seem right either. Last year feels worse, I think, than it really was, just because of
Yeah.
how it happened, everything that happened throughout the season, just all the craziness. And then you get Ben back, you get these pieces back. I like Cam Sutton as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much talent that good players are going to have to sit. Like that's all there is to it.
Yep.
There's just not room, which is an ideal place to be as a
Mm-hmm.
team. Obviously, for the players and the fans, it might not be as cool. Like if you love a guy but he's not getting playing time, I get that. But the team has options, and that's going to be huge this year.
Yeah. I'm excited. I don't want to get too excited because, like I said last year, I was just running my mouth to everybody, and then it ended up
Downplay
not
it
being
this year.
ideal.
They're going
Exactly.
0-16.
Mm-hmm. They're gonna get the
0-16.
first pick. Yeah, they're gonna
Yep,
get
that's
Trevor
it.
Lawrence.
They
Yep.
got him. Get tank for Trevor. Let's
That's
go.
right. Oh, good Lord. Yeah. And that's crazy too, with every single quarterback that's hit free agency that has been the target of Steeler. Like, I don't know who's leading the charge with signing every single quarterback that hits the free agent market, but yeah, it's like I don't get it.
Yeah.
We still have Ben. We'll figure it out
Yeah.
when we need to, but
Not
Andy
right now.
Dalton, Cam Newton, Joe
Yeah.
Flacco, even, like, oh
Oh,
my
it's
gosh.
ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
People just like to talk. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the very first thing we talked about. People just want to bring up the Steelers in some way. Let's
Yep.
work the Steelers into this narrative. Meanwhile, Colbert, Tomlin, Fickner, everybody who talked about it was like, we got our quarterbacks, guys. Like, we're not tricking you. This isn't deception.
Yeah.
We're just actually not interested.
Yeah, but anytime they come out and say, like, we're confident in Mason Rudolph and his ability to back up Ben, people are like, but I don't think
I
that's
don't
what you
believe
mean.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you're messing with me.
Nah, it's messed up.
Yeah. But I think there is a reason to be optimistic with the Steelers this season. And that's awesome.
Somebody joined the chat.
Just
What's
like
up, baby?
vaguely coming in and out of the river. That's
Yeah. It
awesome.
was like the river monster, like emerged.
What's her name?
Babs.
Nice.
Yeah.
German Shepherd, I'm assuming.
Yep. She's
Nice.
German Shepherd. She's
Cool.
a good girl.
Yeah.
She's crazy, but we love her. So.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I have an Australian Shepherd, and she's not as energetic as I think that breed typically tends to be, but she's still like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? You're insane.
Yeah, my sister in college, I lived with her for a year and a half in college. We shared an apartment, and she had an Australian Shepherd. So I was around that dog a lot. And it was like you said, it would get the zoomies all the time, a freaking energy ball. I love that thing, the little fluff ball.
Yeah, they're very they have a lot of hair.
Yeah. So does Babs, man. German Shepherds. We knew it before we got her. Everybody calls them German Shedders and everything. Like we knew the reputation, but she has fulfilled that reputation and then some. It's crazy how much she sheds.
Vacuuming multiple times a week. It's a lot. And with the heat too, it
I know.
nonstop.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
What are you sipping, by the way? I wanted to ask. What's this beer? What's the beer of the day?
So this is Cement City from 4 Points down in Charleroi. Yeah, they have some pretty good beer, but even more than that, their branding, like, oh my goodness, whoever runs their social media is brilliant. It's clean.
Give them a raise.
Yeah, minimalistic. The colors, the photos, unbelievable.
That's awesome.
But
I know I've had some of their stuff at Mike's Beer Bar, but
yeah.
I can't remember any of the specific beers, but I know that they've been on some flights that we've had on that show and stuff.
Yeah.
There's so much good local beer. It's ridiculous.
Right. And I know that you're kind of a beer nerd too.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and posting a lot about Mike's Beer Bar because they have such a huge selection of
It's
local craft
absurd.
beer. It's unbelievable. But like, so if you had to narrow it down to like your top 3 breweries in the Pittsburgh area, who would you put on that list?
Ooh, man, that's tough. But number one isn't tough, thankfully.
Okay.
Brew Gentleman for me is number one.
Mm,
That's like the tier up here, and now
okay.
everybody else has to fight for second and third. Hitchhiker's probably second for me.
Okay.
I
Okay.
love their stuff. Man, who would be 3? Those 2 do stand. 11th Hour's up there too. Oh man,
Yeah.
I would go with that. I think that feels right to me.
Okay.
Yeah. I love Fatheads too. They're not actually local. They're
Yeah.
brewed out of Ohio, so they don't
Right.
count. But I do love Fatheads.
They have
11th
some great
Hour,
stuff.
Hitchhiker, Brew Gentleman. I'll roll with that. Dancing Gnome gets some consideration, but I don't know. I'm not as hype on them as everybody else is. I don't know.
My thing with them is I love their beer, but I have to be in the mood for something super hoppy,
Hmm.
super hazy. Like they
Yes.
tend to lean towards the double IPAs, the New England IPAs, and I'm not necessarily always craving that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they lean more towards that. Every now and then they'll have like a stout or a regular pale ale, but yeah, I I would agree with you on that. Like they teeter in and out of my
Yeah.
top 3 just because they sort of specialize in one
Yep.
type, and it's not always what I want.
For sure. That's exactly what sets Brew Gentlemen apart for me is
Mm,
because everybody thinks of them in a similar vein, like very hazy New England,
mm-hmm.
because the General Braddock's IPA that like put them on the map is that it's a very super hazy,
Yeah.
juicy IPA. And they do a lot of that for sure. But man, their like Mexican coffee stout that they release once a year is so good. It's the best stout I think I've ever had, literally.
Okay.
It's ridiculous. Their porter that they have, Mr. Automatic, that's like their all year round porter. It's fantastic. Like all their beers that aren't hazy are just as good as the hazy ones that get all
Dang.
the recognition. So Brew Gentlemen for me is like they just don't miss. Everything they
Mm,
do is beautiful. So love those guys and that place.
mm. Do they do Mike's Beer Bar, do they have anything from Brew Gentlemen, or do you kind of have to go to Brew
They
Gentlemen to
don't.
get
Yeah.
your
Yeah,
stuff?
you have to go to Brew Gentlemen. They're doing
Okay.
takeout crowlers right now. And hopefully once all this stuff is over, it'll just be back to normal. Hopefully
Yeah.
Mike's Beer Bar can get some. So Brew Gentlemen's actually expanding too. They're going to start canning. So hopefully
Oh,
that'll open
great.
them up. Yeah. So hopefully that'll open them up to be in a lot more places. Tell you where you can get it actually is Piper's Pub in Southside.
Really?
Yeah, they always have like General Braddock's. Like they usually have
Okay.
one Brew Gentleman on tap there, and actually some Dancing
Hmm.
Gnome and stuff too. Their beer selection there's crazy, surprisingly.
Shoot. I've never been, and I've never had anything from Brew Gentlemen, but they've always been on my like
Yeah.
next up
Oh, do it
list.
for sure. Like I cannot recommend that enough, for sure. So, who's your top 3 then?
So number 1 by a landslide is Grist House.
Okay.
Yeah, because I feel like their variety is always super, super diverse, and they also do everything really well. So anytime I go there, no matter what I'm craving or what mood I'm in, I can always find something that I'm like, yeah, I
Yeah.
can sip on this.
And you get to pet like 30 dogs at a minimum
Yeah,
every time you're there, so that's
uh-huh.
good too.
Always a ton of dogs, and they typically have a food truck outside. It's awesome. I love Grist House. I would say number 2 is Cinderlands.
Hmm.
um Not necessarily because of like because of any other reason than that they're the reason that I got into sour beer, like sours. I had their pumpkin pie tart shake IPA back around Thanksgiving last year, and I'm a super basic white girl, so that just like it hit me in a vein that was
Yeah.
it really got to me. Um and I've had some really great beers from them. I've had some kind of like underwhelming stuff from them too, but their their hits have been home runs for me. And then I would say number 3 teeters in and out, 11th Hour and Dancing Gnome. Those are
Nice.
the 2 that kind
Okay.
of fight for that 3rd spot.
Yeah, we're on the same page for the most part. Grist House was like next up in my mind. I could probably switch them for my 3 as well. Because like you said, and exactly the same reason. Their variety's crazy, and they do it all super well. You could take anybody to Grist House and find them something that they like, which is a huge plus. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I love them, and I've been getting a lot of their cans through this whole thing because they've been selling them from their future Collier location out in Oakdale. So that's super close to where I live, and it's just a quick drive. And I can get there, pick up cans whenever I want. And that's what's kept me from going to Brew Gentleman, because it's a little bit of a drive.
Yeah, Braddock's out there for you for sure.
Yeah.
But we used to live in Oakdale too. That's funny. So I like that area for sure.
It's nice. Yeah. I'm sort of airport-ish.
Okay.
But
what's I think we technically lived in Imperial maybe.
Okay. Yeah, that's out that way.
The address was Oakdale, but it was like Imperial. But what's the brewery there? Isn't there a brewery in Oakdale now? It wasn't there when we lived there.
Oh gosh. I can picture it in my mind. Because I pass it every time I go to get beer from Grist House, but good Lord, my mind is slipping.
Getting old.
Yeah, I know, right?
Or too much beer.
Probably a little bit of both, but
Helicon, there we go.
Helicon.
That's it.
Thank you. I knew it was H. I couldn't remember what it was. But yeah, they have their brewery out there, and I think they've continued to sell. I'm not quite sure, but I've never had anything from them.
Okay.
Have you?
Yeah, Mike's Beer Bar, thankfully. Okay. Like we did that Sports on Tap show. I don't know if you saw that show ever, but we did it for I don't know how many weeks in a row until coronavirus hit. So I was having 4 different beers a week for several weeks at a time there, and it was always local. It was always 4 local beers. So I had Helicon a couple times there. I just remember it stood out because I was like, wait, Oakdale? Like there's a brewery in Oakdale now? I moved too soon. But yeah, there's no shortage anywhere you go around the city now is the good news. Yeah,
there's a brewery pretty much in every suburb at this point. Like you can find somewhere to go.
Yeah, for sure. I'll tell you who else. I've never been there, but I love every Insurrection beer I've ever had. I like their stuff a lot, but I've never been there.
I haven't either, but they're also on my go-to list.
Gotta make it happen.
Yeah. Because
it's like every day I check online, there's a new brewery somewhere. It's like, oh,
they just
guess I gotta go there now. Yeah, It's nuts. It's a good time to be alive. But Brew Gentleman's still up there. I'm telling you, you gotta make that happen. Get a crowler. Follow them on Instagram, and they're always posting in their story like how to order, how to come pick up your crowler. It's super easy. You just call and then you drive up and they bring it out to your car and you leave. It's beautiful.
Shoot. Yeah. Okay. So would you say General Braddock's is the way to go to start out?
That's like the one. That's like if you're introducing a Steelers fan to the Steelers for the first time and you show them like the 1975 Steelers, like that's like the one,
Okay. So can't go wrong.
Right. But I would for sure, like whatever double IPA they have on tap, I would get that because they rotate. It's something they release new beers every Wednesday, like at least 1 or 2. So there's always something just crazy fresh. I would get that, and then I would get just something else, a stout or a saison or whatever else they have.
Cool. It's good to know.
Hell yeah.
Taking mental notes. Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Let me know. Keep me posted when you get that crowler.
I will. Yeah, I'll give a rating.
Nice.
Yeah. Keep you posted. But Hunter, thank you so much for coming on the show today and hanging out. It's always so much fun for me to talk sports with other people, especially when it's somebody who's so invested in the Pittsburgh sports scene. Seriously, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, same to you. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Anytime you want to do it again, this was fantastic. I really appreciate it. Now you got me wanting a beer too, so I may need to hit up the beer fridge.
There you go. It's an appropriate time. It's, the
It's
afternoon at this point.
it's 6 p.m., right? The
Yeah,
listeners don't know what time we're recording this. It's 6
they
p.m.
don't.
We're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
And it's quarantine time, so every hour is 6
It
p.m.
is.
for the
It is.
most
It's
part.
like super daylight savings adjustment. Like add 6 hours. Yeah.
Terrible. Well, thank you again. I hope you have a good day. Enjoy whatever beer it is you end up
Yeah.
drinking.
Same to you. Thanks so much.
Cool. Yeah. Have a good one.
Yep. Later.
Bye.